key speaker from Executive Director of Life Matters Journal, Aimee Murphy.
Hello, I'm so grateful to be able to speak to you all today. My name is Aimee Murphy, and I am the Executive Director of Life Matters Journal. You may know my parents, Teresa and Raul Bedoy. They still live in the area. I grew up in El Dorado Hills, so I'm a native myself. I now live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I work full-time with the organization that I founded right out of college. We are dedicated to a philosophy of nonviolence, and we work tirelessly to promote education and discourse on all matters of human life and dignity. I've been asked to speak a little bit from our perspective as a consistent life ethic organization, in addition to addressing the reason we are all here today, the Planned Parenthood scandal. I entered this movement when I was just a teen. I was only 16 when I found my voice for human rights. As a high schooler, my on-again, off-again boyfriend told me, when faced with a pregnancy scare, that if I didn't get an abortion, he would kill me, and then himself. I knew then, in that moment, that violence could not be the answer, and I knew that I had to do something to stop the violence of abortion. Since then, I've become more familiar with the ethical philosophy called personalism. In it, we comprehend the unchangeable value of every person, from conception to natural death. Both John Henry Cardinal Newman and Pope John Paul II elaborated upon this ethical philosophy that is based in the idea that human beings are totally unique and irreplaceable. For example, who here has a girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, significant other? Anyone? Raise your hand if you do. Yeah, okay. So, a lot of you do. And how would it sound to those of you who have these significant others if we traded in your current significant other for a similar make and model? A person with similar attributes in nearly every way. Same hair color, same tone of voice, same level of intelligence. How would that sound? If you're uncomfortable with the idea of trading in your partner, this is because every human being has their own unique selfhood. They are valuable in and of themselves, not for their age, for their size, for the color of their hair, the timbre of their voice, nor their intelligence. This ethical foundation leads us to a consistent understanding of human rights. Every act of aggressive violence against our fellow man is an act of injustice against their dignity, against their selfhood. As such, I propose that we must in conscience condemn all such acts. Abortion, the death penalty, unjust war, euthanasia, embryonic stem cell research, torture, human trafficking, and abuse. It means that we are consistently pro-life for all human beings in all circumstances, no matter their size, their IQ, their location, their religion, their skin color, their sexuality, their income bracket. For our worth is not based on our circumstances, but in our shared humanity, in our unique selfhood. Having this broad understanding of human rights does not mean that all issues are equal in weight, but that they all compound the disregard for the life and dignity of human beings. I'd like to focus most of my time today, of course, going over some points on abortion, the most egregious human rights violation on scale alone. I'm sure you're familiar with the attitude that is perpetuated by the counselors in the building behind us at Planned Parenthood, that the preborn human being is just a blob of cells or even a parasite, a clump of tissue. These dehumanizing terms betray the blatant discrimination in which many liberals take part in our modern world. Despite the desire to be free from the inconvenient offspring, embryology, science, not religion, science tells us that the product of a same-species conception is indeed a complete, whole, and differentiated member of the same species. In short, we are human beings from the moment that we are conceived. This, of course, means that these tiny human beings are worthy of the same respect and dignity which we demonstrate towards our infants, toddlers, kindergartners, preteens, adolescents, adults, and aged. The gravity of this situation is more than I can properly put into words, and the situation in our nation should sober us. 3,000 children killed every day by elective abortion. Over 1 million tiny human beings aborted every year. You might be thinking, but this evil is too big. How can we possibly fight it? Sophie Scholl, a student in World War II Germany who was eventually martyred for standing up to the Nazi regime, entreated her young peers to get active in the nonviolent struggle. She said, "The real damage is done by those millions who want to survive. The honest men who just want to be left in peace. Those who don't want their little lives disturbed by anything bigger than themselves. Those with no sides and no causes. Those who don't like to make enemies or waves. But it's all an illusion because they die too. And a little candle burns itself out just like a flaming torch does. I choose my own way to burn." To the young people here especially, we have the power to make great change. We have been born for such a time as this. 1/3 of our generation is missing. They have been killed by legal abortion in our country. And yet we have grown up with social justice as an everyday part of our lexicon. We were raised with stories of Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Susan B. Anthony, and Dorothy Day. And you are not too young, nor are you ever too old. If you have a voice, you can speak for the weak. Nice sign over there, buddy. I'm not saying that you have to do everything. I will entreat you on this point, however. To be silent on issues of legal violence is tacit consent to the destruction of human beings who have lives full of potential. Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor, said it quite well. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. And yet, such stark silence in the face of injustice from our media. Where is the outrage? Where is the voice calling for justice? Instead, there have been op-eds and guest columns from the mouthpieces of Planned Parenthood, and the same tired talking points repeated ad nauseum. They say, without Planned Parenthood, women will lose access to many necessary healthcare services. Women will die. But the undercover investigation into Planned Parenthood by the Center for Medical Progress, whether or not you agree with their tactics, has revealed gruesome and inhumane behavior by the #1 abortion provider in the nation. There are more comprehensive options than Planned Parenthood, and they perform all of their medical care without killing human beings. The 7th Center for Medical Progress video is a documentary, most of which is consented footage from a former STEM Express procurement technician who speaks at length of her experience with procuring brain tissue from a fetus whose heart was still beating after an abortion at a Planned Parenthood facility. Not only did the Planned Parenthood physicians not attempt to save the child's life, but then Holly was advised to cut through the face of the infant to procure highly valuable brain tissue. This testimony is evidence of Planned Parenthood subverting law, the Born Alive Infants Protection Act of 2002, and shows a callous disregard for the life and dignity of a preterm infant, and demonstrates that Planned Parenthood places a higher value on scientific research and potentially profit. After Planned Parenthood's conduct in Ohio, not sure if y'all knew about this, they were found covering up the statutory rape of a minor by her soccer coach. Or another case in Ohio, they covered up incest. we would be negligent to not find a more ethical and humane healthcare option. We as a state and the United States as a nation should not be contracting with an organization that directly defies the law and subverts sound medical ethics time and time again. The common retort in favor of Planned Parenthood is that they provide quality health care, and they do so much good. Planned Parenthood has 665 clinics nationwide, which perform a limited scope of services. You can't get care to overcome infertility. You can't get resources to help plan your parenthood if you are pregnant and want to carry your child to term. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And to address a common myth, Planned Parenthood does not provide mammograms at any of their clinics. In fact, they don't even have the equipment to do them. Cecile Richards said this in a congressional hearing just last week. To address another misleading number, the statistic that is often touted, only 3% of Planned Parenthood services are abortions. When reviewing their most recent annual report, we can see that Planned Parenthood provides more abortions yearly than any other provider in the United States, with 327,653 in the 2013-2014 fiscal year. And since they served 2.1 million patients that same year, we can see by doing some simple division that 12% of the patients they saw received abortions. Roughly 48% of their non-governmental clinic revenue came from abortion services. And 94% of all patients seeking care for their pregnancy will have an abortion, with just 5% receiving some form of prenatal care and less than 1% receiving adoption referrals. Abby Johnson, a former Planned Parenthood clinic director, has exposed their abortion quotas and awards for increasing abortion services. This directly contradicts the common line that we hear from the pro-choice side, that they want abortion to be safe, legal, and rare. Abortion is the only service that Planned Parenthood provides that federally qualified health centers do not. So let's support the nonviolent choice. There are more than 13,000 federally qualified health care centers locations nationwide, compared to those 665 Planned Parenthood clinics. They are in more locations, they serve the underserved and underprivileged demographics, and provide a broader range of healthcare services to millions more people every year, all without performing the violent act of abortion. And there are 19 FQHCs within a 15-mile drive of this Planned Parenthood location. Many of these community healthcare centers provide breast and pelvic exams, cancer screenings, gynecological care, and even birth control to low and no-income individuals who may or may not have insurance. The Senate bill that was on the table earlier this year to divert funds from Planned Parenthood would have redirected the $500 million in taxpayer funding to these grassroots healthcare organizations who are in touch with the needs of our own communities. Healthcare means healing. Violence against another human being simply is not healing. Violence is harm. And when you think abortion, you should think death. You should think killing. We have so many abortion-free clinics that do so much good here in Sacramento, but they are underfunded. We need to ensure that these facilities that don't perform acts of violence can continue to serve our Sacramento community. We must continue to put pressure on our politicians to support these clinics with the diverted Planned Parenthood funding, and volunteer, donate, and give our support to the FQHCs and the local pregnancy resource centers. In conclusion, when Planned Parenthood's CEO receives over $520,000 annually in her salary and benefits, Planned Parenthood is obviously not a nonprofit that has the good of people at its heart. They are a 1%er corporation that has demonstrated a clear disregard for the dignity of the preborn, infants born alive, many rape victims, and the women to whom they lie consistently by telling them that these precious preborn human beings are nothing but blobs of tissue. You can't harvest hearts, lungs, and liver from blobs of tissue, but Dr. Nucatola knows that. We wouldn't contract with a preschool that killed 3% of the toddlers in its care each day, no matter how much free or low-cost care they offer to the general public. Our government contracting with an organization that kills tiny human beings makes us too complicit in death. Planned Parenthood is acting like an abusive boyfriend, and I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick of being told that I'd be lost without them. They do not own women's health care, and they do not deserve our money. Isn't it great to have a young pro-life speaker? Aimee is an artist, so you see some of her signs that she's made here. And before you leave today, be sure to go visit her table over there. She's got t-shirts and buttons, and it's just a blessing to be able to help her in her ministry. Thank you.
Thank you.